Well, the big kahuna himself, Novak Djokovic, it turns out after Grigor Dimitrov tested positive less than a week ago, the Adria Tour that Djokovic started was completely shut down. We found out coaches and other players, they have COVID-19, and now the big kahuna himself, Novak Djokovic, and his glorious helmet hair. Look at that helmet of hair he's got there. They should sell that every single tournament across the world. Right next to that giant tennis ball that kids get autographs on, should have a replica of Djokovic's hair, so we can all plop one of those on our heads, especially the big Joker fans out there. Djokovic, in his incredible hair helmet, has the COVID-19. Unfortunately, his wife, Yelena, has it as well, and his kids are spared. His children do not have it. They tested negative. It's kind of hard for kids to get COVID, it seems like. So let's take a look at what Novak Djokovic had to say about this. Everything we did in the past month, we did with a pure heart. Our tournament meant to unite and share a message of solidarity and compassion throughout the region. That's enough Djokovic voice. Djokovic continues, it was all born with a philanthropic idea to direct all raised funds towards people in need, and it warmed my heart to see how everybody strongly responded to this. We organized the tournament at the moment when the virus had weakened, believing the conditions for hosting the tour had been met. And you see out there basically two different reactions to this whole thing. A lot of us now, I was postponing to do this show because I was thinking, let me give Djokovic and Nadal a little more time to think about whether or not they're going to play the U.S. Open or skip the U.S. Open. I wanted a definitive answer on that. But now it feels like we're going to be waiting to find out whether or not the U.S. Open is going to get too scared after all the blowback, all the the reaction to this whole Adria Tour fiasco, meltdown, whatever you want to call it. Will the U.S. Open just say, you know what? We don't even want to take a chance on having some kind of Novak Djokovic type Adria Tour nightmare meltdown scenario, and let's just cancel the U.S. Open. That's a thing that people are wondering today. But this is what stuns me the most. Djokovic says this, and I know at this point it's CYA, PR, defensive strategy type stuff, but listen to this last sentence from the Djokovic statement. This one is stunning. Unfortunately, this virus is still present. Yes, and it is in a new reality that we are still learning to cope and live with. It's a new reality. It's not that new. Anyways, I'm somewhere in the middle. The responses I'm seeing is, I feel sorry for Djokovic, he's a victim. And then I see other people saying Djokovic is the scourge of humanity and he's going to be responsible for the loss of countless lives, which have we yet to hear of one person in the Adria Tour crowd? I'm sure the nightclub where this happened. I'm sure there's a lot of stories of people getting COVID-19 in there because you can get it inside much easier. The air conditioning basically preserves, they're called droplets. Right now I'm producing droplets. The louder I get, the more passionate I become about Coffee Break Tennis today, the more micro droplets I will spew into the air. If I'm yelling louder, if I'm laughing, there's going to be more and more. You ever been eating with someone and some particles of food come flying out of their mouth with some saliva micro droplet sprays? You know, we've all had that happen before. Usually people pretend like it didn't happen. Sometimes people will say, I'm sorry, I just spittled upon you with some food. We all know that happens. Well, when you go indoors, those droplets are going to hang in the air and they're going to be sustained. They're going to live longer because of the air conditioning. When you're outside, a combination of sunlight, heat, and humidity especially, that's going to kill those droplets, right? We've been learning more and more about COVID-19, and now we know that you don't really have to worry so much about picking up like a UPS, a FedEx box. I mean, you should wash your hands. I'm not saying don't, but that's not as big of a threat as being close to people, especially indoors. Let me read to you a couple responses to just give you an idea of what we're seeing. Here's one. This is from Instagram. Merlo5 said, there is mathematical certainty that as a result of the Adria Tour event, some people is definitely going to die. This person, Abhas, says, irresponsible, man. Don't need to show off in these times. World is on edge right now, and you guys were partying, hugging, playing basketball. Is this also a part of your peace act and then medical? I had enough of that one. The intention was noble to put on the Adria Tour, but he gets what he deserves, not listening to real medical advice, 2 meters apart, instead decided to hug everyone. Pretty selfish, and again, out of his own self-importance on wanting to be liked, he has made himself a villain again. This also caused for other tennis players to be infected. RF Fed said, I feel sorry for him. He meant well. He also seems to be disliked by so many fans no matter how he tries, as opposed to Raj, who can do no wrong. Of course, that is true. Lita said, maybe not try that hard or that often. Monica said, and she's really right here, did he really mean well, Djokovic? Tennis tournament, full contact basketball, and a nightclub in the middle of a pandemic? I don't think so. Here's where I am. I'm somewhere in the middle. The Adria Tour was fine. I've seen no evidence that anyone in those crowds has coronavirus. I think you should have had the crowds. I think the U.S. Open can have crowds. We've heard the French Open is going to allow up to 5,000 people to watch the tennis. The Adria Tour, they shouldn't have packed out the stands, which they did for some matches for sure. They should have spaced people out. They should say, you should wear a mask. I don't know if you're going to be able to enforce requiring every single person to wear a mask. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to drag people out of the stands if they take their mask off? How are you going to actually enforce that? But it should strongly be recommended to wear a mask. I think at the U.S. Open, man, we know how hot and humid it is there. It's going to be really hard to spread that virus when you're outside or when you're in the stadiums with the roof open. I'd say don't close the roof with people in there. Maybe that's part of the reason why they said no fans. But my point is, Adria Tour was fine. Where we went horribly wrong was, take a look at this. Grigor Dimitrov. We're in the full body wrap here. Indoors playing basketball, full contact. Really bad idea. But the worst, of course, is the nightclub. I told you about micro droplets. That's really the number one way. The more you read, it blows my mind. Some of the people out there are so upset saying, think of the children. What about Children's Day? Well, one, children barely even get this. And if they do get this, it pretty much does nothing to them. Now, I'll show you some stats later in the show. But the main thing was the children's event was outside. They're outdoors. That was probably fine. There's no problem with that. All the problems come when you go indoors to play basketball and you get close to each other and you go to this nightclub. Take a look at this again. This is amazing that Djokovic would let this happen. I guess he really didn't think coronavirus, COVID-19 was a thing anymore. And now, unfortunately, here's the best comment. ML Tennis 1 says, first, let's hope they all get well soon. I fully back that. Second, we all saw this coming. I didn't see it coming because I never would have predicted anyone would be dumb enough to do the nightclub incident. And third, let's say thank you, Djokovic. You just wrote the book on how not to run a tennis tournament. And my friends, if the U.S. Open now decides to pull the plug on the whole thing after what happened, the French Open too, who knows? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's definitely a thing people are talking about. It's a possibility. As much as I appreciated Djokovic bringing tennis back, I thought the Adria Tour was great. What happened after that? The nightclub, the basketball. Now we might have to blame Djokovic for taking tennis completely away in 2020. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, of course, the whole world, especially those who already hated Djokovic, well, they're piling on. They're beating Djokovic up. Should we feel a little sorry for him? Also, the number one person to bully Novak Djokovic right now is Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios said probably the funniest line of the entire month. The month of June, Nick Kyrgios has the funniest line. Where is it? I'll tell it. Here it is. Prayers up to all the players that have contracted COVID-19, mate. But don't at me for anything, mate, I've done that has been irresponsible or classified as stupidity because, mate, this one takes the cake. Right you are, Nick Kyrgios. And it didn't have to be this way. Novak Djokovic didn't have to go to the nightclub and have everyone get coronavirus. Also, we'll talk about, there's a great piece here from Ubi Tennis saying coronavirus risk is not severe enough to deny struggling players earning opportunities. Is that true? Why is that the case? We'll talk about that. And also, emotions prevailed. Grigor Dimitrov's agent speaks a little bit on what happened, how it unfolded. We will dive deep into the mystery, the debacle, the fiasco of the Adria Tour gone wrong today on Coffee Break Tennis. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. I am your host, Matt Bradshaw. Mr. Goat was here briefly, but he said, with all the microparticles that are flying out of your mouth, sir, and that's why you saw him flee out of here. He's been very careful. He doesn't have a mask, so he has to be extra careful. It's hard to construct a mask with cat claws because everything you touch with the claws is destroyed. Cloth. What can you do with cloth? We're working on getting him an M95 feline edition right now. Let's take a listen to Nick Kyrgios. I mean, I told you the main thing that he said, but it's pretty awesome. You got to admit, it's very funny. It's one of the funniest things we've seen in tennis in a while. Nick Kyrgios has taken another swipe at the organizers of the Adria Tours from the Daily Mail. Great place. At the Adria Tour, after world number one Novak Djokovic announced he's tested positive for coronavirus. Djokovic became the 6th direct participant in his exhibition series to get it, held in Belgrade and Zadar. I don't know Zadar. I've never heard of Zadar before. And I know a lot of geography for your average American. The two events were held with almost a complete lack of social distancing measures, with the players also socializing together in nightclubs as well as playing football and basketball together. And also, you know Djokovic isn't drinking. Knowing that Djokovic has zero alcohol in his system, when you see this flashlight dance. It just makes it not okay to me. To me, it's okay to dance like that if you've been drinking. Not drinking, it doesn't add up, folks.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Nick Kyrgios has again taken a pop at the organizers of the Adria Tour after Joker became the 6th person. Why do they repeat that paragraph here? Tweeting a video of players from the event partying in a nightclub, Kyrgios said the decision to play amid the pandemic made his previous indiscretions pale by comparison. Of course, that's when we get the excellent quote, "Mate, don't tweet at me for nothing, mate. Especially if it involves stupidity, because this takes the cake, mate." On Monday, after Croatian player Borna Coric, yes, Borna Coric has it too. Somehow Zverev doesn't. Look at Zverev. What? How does he not have it? He's self-isolating, which is, the responsible thing. If you think you could have it and you got a false positive, that's when you take a test and it says, negative, a false negative. The test says you're negative, you don't have COVID, but sometimes it can be false because it turns out, and this is one of the problems with making everyone do, put a clip on. Have you seen the test? They stick a thing all the way to your back of your throat. That's why you get false negatives sometimes, because when you feel that thing go all the way. Let's demonstrate. Do I have a pen? When they administer the COVID-19 test, and it looks like this, they put this thing all the way in the back of your throat. And then people freak out, and they pull it out, and they don't get enough of a sample, and that's how we get so many false negatives, excuse me. The problem is you have to have they call it a viral load. How much of the virus do you have in you? And if you can have it, but if the viral load is low and you're not showing symptoms yet, you can get a false negative. It's pretty common. So it almost seems like you really shouldn't test anyone until they feel not right. They got to feel some kind of symptom. Even though these athletes are so healthy, they're going to have less symptoms anyways. That's the thing about this. The real danger, and a lot of people out there are commenting about it and talking about it, is that there are people who will not have tiny symptoms, who may die if they get COVID-19. Obviously, we know there are people with pre-existing conditions, people who are much older. If all these young people, and that's why we see cases spiking. We'll look at that in a second. We see cases spiking in some states around the U.S., and I think it's just a lot of young people who are going out, mostly to clubs. Because think about it, the microparticles, when you're in a club, there's loud music playing. So what do you do if you want someone to hear what you have to say? You get close, and you yell in their ear like this, "Hey, this song, it's my favorite song." And Djokovic's like, "Yeah, I like a song too," right? That's how you get it. Raising your voice, throwing more particles, and getting close, and being indoors with air conditioning, which is basically like how a refrigerator keeps your food from going bad. The air conditioning keeps the viral load high. It keeps the virus alive. It preserves the viral specimen. So the truth is, these guys, these super athletes, I mean, you know what? Okay, we got enough of Kyrgios. We get the idea. Kyrgios is like, you guys can't say nothing about me. Don't blame you, Kyrgios. Right on, mate. Should we keep it forever? Should we put it in the annals of history? This one's too good to forget. We'll remember it. We don't need it. I got a piece from Kevin Mitchell in The Guardian. He has a bleak outlook on things. That's nothing new, but I thought it was a good piece. Maybe we'll look at it in a moment. Novak Djokovic has learned he could not hide from the coronavirus, even in his own bubble. But let's listen to the agent of Grigor Dimitrov, who tells us, he takes us behind the scenes so we can see what happened here. And you'll see. It'll be perfectly illustrated that Grigor, how are we doing on time? It was supposed to rain today, like all day long. No rain in sight. Tennis lessons must go on. That leaves us with like 5-6 minutes to do the rest of the show, and then we get a run. Sorry about that. I'll come back soon, I promise. The tennis news is moving too fast now to not do shows more frequently. Things are getting kicking. We got to do more shows. Emotions prevailed over the rules, says Grigor Dimitrov's agent. Georgy Stoimenov has shed some details on the condition of the former top 10 player Dimitrov, who confirmed on Sunday, Sonntag, for those of you from the Deutsch-speaking part of the world, that he has tested positive for COVID-19, which resulted in the final of the Adria Tour being canceled, which he was participating in before withdrawing the day prior. Since then, Borna Coric has it, Viktor Troicki has it, some coaches have it, a bunch of people have it. Of course, Novak Djokovic has it. All right, so Georgy Stoimenov says, Grigor is fine. He is recovering gradually. Yesterday, he no longer has any of the symptoms he had before. He felt a little tired, but over the time, he got better. So if you're a 30-year, is Dimitrov about 30 now? Gotta be about 30. About 30. If you're about 30 years old and you're in world-class athletic shape like Grigor Dimitrov, here's your symptoms. You're gonna be a little tired, a little less energy, and it's kind of funny, is it funny? I guess it's funny. Some people are losing their lives because of COVID-19, and the agent, Georgy Stoimenov, a little tone deaf here. Maybe it's just translated from a different language. I don't know. He basically says, it's sad because Grigor is training so hard, and now that he has coronavirus and he feels a little tired, he can't train as hard, and he's going to lose some of his tennis fitness. So we feel really bad for Grigor because of that. The truth is, Grigor is fine, as they say right here. He's recovering gradually. We tried to analyze things. This is where things get more interesting for me. Oh, and by the way, if you heard at the beginning, it's funny how very little anyone, including all the experts going back to January, knew about COVID-19. And one of the things we heard early on was that even young people, you'll see scans of their lungs if they have COVID-19 that basically shows like their lung capacity is being destroyed. You heard stories about people going upstairs or out of breath, people that were in pretty good shape. And it turns out they did a scan on Grigor, and to our delight, they were absolutely clean. So that's really just older people, as far as I can tell, at least from everything I've been reading. The only people who really have to worry, and again, I'm not trying to say go out and be reckless and get COVID-19 like it's a lot of fun, but I'm saying, if you're young and healthy, you're probably not going to have your lungs destroyed as we originally heard. And if you have a very low viral load, it might be harder to pass this thing around. So more information is going to come out. Djokovic's dad, who I'm not even getting into all the negative stuff he said about Federer recently. Djokovic has had a heck of a news cycle, huh? Right when his dad's saying all this junk about Djokovic is so much better than Federer, and Federer is, why is he playing at this age? He's wasting time. It's nonsense. Djokovic would never do such a thing, is basically what he said. After that, we go right into all this stuff happening. So this has been a bad couple of weeks for Djokovic. And he's going out there right now saying, it's Dimitrov. Dimitrov came. He sabotaged the Adria Tour. He made my son sick. He's making us suffer. Dimitrov did it. And I saw one, there's one outlet that I see news stories from occasionally. I don't know if it's out of Serbia. Somewhere around there, though. Somewhere around that powder keg. You get some news out of there, and there's like some conspiracy theories about Dimitrov was planted to cause destruction to the Adria Tour and to hurt Djokovic, which sounds like a bunch of nonsense. I shouldn't have even repeated it because that's obviously nothing backs that, no evidence of that. But Djokovic's dad, not quite that conspiracy theorist sounding, but a little bit, saying it's all Grigor's fault. This is where Stoimenov, the agent of Grigor Dimitrov, he tries to analyze things, as he says. They try to figure out where could it have started? How could Grigor have gotten it? Grigor is the first to notice symptoms, to test positive. Where could it have started? We tried to analyze things, says Stoimenov. Who, how, where it may have come from. But it's hard work, and it leads to nowhere. Everyone tried to observe them, but the emotion that accompanied the tennis players related to the fact that they hadn't seen each other for 3 to 4 months. Everyone felt liberated. Maybe that made them cross some boundaries. As for the public, the stadium was 4,000 people full. There were an awful lot of supporters who took pictures with each of them, followed them to places where it was allowed. Was it observed? Conditionally, but obviously emotions prevail over the existing rules in Serbia. Fortunately, Dimitrov is expected to make a full recovery, but will still be placed in self-isolation, so he doesn't get people who aren't as healthy as him sick, because they might not survive it so easily as Grigor Dimitrov. There are severe cases, says Stoimanov, of this virus developing. It's a concern for anyone who has it. Grigor spent a little over 3 months in isolation. It's ideal environment for good sports training. This virus, currently, it's black in those 3 months because what has been accumulated has accumulated. It remains. But this 2-week period, because that's it for Dimitrov and Djokovic, all of them, it's going to be 2, maybe a little longer, but about 2 weeks where they're going to feel a little tired. And then they'll be fine. In which he will not be able to train, will disrupt his sports rhythm. What a tragedy that he had his sports rhythm. I don't think you should be having a player's party and dancing. This is from Dan Evans, and he nails it. They kept pressing him in the interview, and he basically said, let's put it this way. I don't think you should be having a player's party and dancing all over each other and then 2 very good players test positive. That's what Dan Evans had to say about it. Djokovic should feel some responsibility for this event and how it's transpired. So poor example set, even if the guidelines in that country are not 2 meters, it is not a joke, is it? So I think that's a little bit in response to Richard Gasquet, who basically said that it's not Djokovic's fault, it's the government's fault. The Serbian government told him he could do this. I think Djokovic, unless he's like really ignorant on how COVID-19 worked, if he had no curiosity, but he seems like a curious guy to me, so I don't fully buy that. I guess Djokovic just thought, because we are athletes, and comment below what you think about this. You know, how much blame does Djokovic get? I think what Djokovic did with the Adria Tour was fine. It was a great thing. It was a noble cause. It helped encourage everyone that tennis can come back, and you can even have fans there if you do it in a responsible way. Again, I don't think they should have sold out the place. They should have spaced people out a little bit at least. You know, it's okay to sit next to your roommate, your family members, people that you're already around a lot anyways. But other than that, space people out. And then again, when you're outside, it's so much harder to spread this virus. But I thought it was great. Everything goes wrong, of course, with Take a Look Again. What the hell is that dance? What the hell were they thinking? All right, let's talk. We're running out of time. So, oh my gosh, we're like completely out of time. Let's take a look at one thing. So we heard recently about the spikes, the cases. Again, like it seems like no one knows anything. You saw all kinds of people upset about, Djokovic exposed children at Child's Day at the the exhibition, the Adria Tour tournaments. And those poor children, when you're outside, children are not really getting this. They're the smallest case, right? Less than 20. Here we go. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of the numbers and we'll get out of here. So you've probably heard that Arizona is an area where cases are spiking in the U.S. If you live in the U.S., you've definitely heard about this. So let's take a look at the map. First off, where is it spiking? You got 1,000 cases here. You got 800, 500 there. Only 66 there. This county only has 16. There's probably only 30 people lives there. Who knows? But right here, this is where the big city, Phoenix, Arizona is. You got 33,000 cases. Now let's take a look at those cases. How many of them are less than 20 years old? 6,400. 45 to 54, you got 89. 55 to 64, you got 7,100. 65 years and older, you got 7,500. These people are pretty smart. The older people, they know that they're at risk. So what we've seen all over the world, really, older people are being more careful. They're wearing the masks more. You should wear the masks, by the way. It really does. If the person with COVID and the person without it both have a mask on, even if you're indoors, you're still extremely unlikely to get it. The masks, they're great. I don't understand why some people think the masks is somehow a bad thing. Look at this group right here, 20 to 44. Let's put emphasis on the especially dumber people, because I was in my 20s not that long ago, and I was much dumber than I am today. So I can give you proof of that. 20 to 44, 27,000, let's round it up, 943, 28,000 of the cases are all in this age bracket where all these tennis players fit in. And what do you think happens in the city, in Phoenix, where these 33,000 cases are? We got young people going out to nightclubs and bars where there's loud music, and they're getting closer saying, hey, do you like that song? Huh? Yeah, I like the song. I recently told a friend of mine who's much younger than me, he's in his early 20s, we observed something dumb. And I told him, I said, something I've done for years now, a way I look at things, I think of everything as risk, reward, right? What is the risk involved? Is it worth taking on the risk to get the reward? And he said to me, wow, I've never thought of anything like that before. And I said, yeah, because you're 22, which means you're kind of dumb. Because I was too. You'll grow out of it. It's okay. I forgive everyone for it. And I shouldn't say dumb, ignorant. You just haven't learned a lot of things yet. So risk reward. The risk of doing the Adria Tour, fairly high. Although, if we look at some of these stats here, COVID-19 deaths by age group. Under 20, there's 6. Age 20 and below, 6. I've heard some statistics out there saying that the flu is actually more dangerous to you if you are under the age of 20. Can you believe that? That is actually true. The older you get, COVID-19 becomes much more dangerous than the flu, right? So we heard originally it's 10 times stronger than the flu, and then they said, it's not. It's really what comes down to is COVID is stronger than the flu, more deadly than the flu, all depending on your age and if you have serious like if you have diabetes, something like that, pre-existing health conditions. So look, 20 to 44, 72 people died, even though we know that the majority of the cases now, especially, so like, what is it, 37,000 in Arizona, in the state of Arizona, or in that age group, 72 died. So almost no one's dying from it at that age. Then it goes up 45 to 54. It goes up 55 to 64. Over 65, that's where all of your deaths are. And those people, they saw this. They're smart. They've lived for a long time. They're avoiding it. The risk of the Adria Tour is fairly low if older people stay away, if people wear masks, if you space people out, and if Djokovic doesn't take people to nightclubs. The rewards are great. It shows people there's a way forwards for tennis. And we can have the U.S. Open. We can have the French Open. We just have to be smart. I wish I had time to get to that one article, but we don't. We'll do it next time. But the article basically said the people at the bottom of tennis are losing their livelihood, and pretty soon they're going to have to get a real job and quit doing tennis because there's no money coming in for them without tennis, right? The risk is not high enough to keep them from earning a living and have them quit being tennis players and try something else in life. That would be a real tragedy, right? And the reward for going forwards with tennis, it's great. We can see all the reasons why going forwards with tennis is great. The risk of taking all of the players to the nightclub as Novak Djokovic is pretty great. And the reward, well, it's this big. It's tiny. Hit the music. There is no reward, Djokovic. I'd say the only reward is for all of us, and Nick Kyrgios especially, sitting back here and retweeting that video from the nightclub and laughing our asses off. That's the reward, but there was too much risk for such a tiny reward. We'll be back very soon. Make sure you sign up below. Click the link to sign up for the Coffee Break Tennis newsletter. You won't miss a thing. I'll let you know when the next show is. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty soon because there's got to be some pretty big news coming down the way pretty soon regarding U.S. Open, Novak Djokovic, and the whole big silly thing. See ya!